Hi, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, How to Manage Your Blood Sugar in the New Year. I'm Ewan from the Culina Health team. We're very excited to have you here with us. For those of you who may not be as familiar with Culina Health, we're a telehealth nutrition care practice. We're a team of registered dietitians who provide personalized insurance-covered nutrition care to help our patients achieve their health goals. And we let them do it all from the comfort of their own space, and we are available nationwide. Before we dive in, as Paige said, we would love to hear from you. If you can take a moment and tell us in the chat where you're joining from, we'd love to hear, we'd love to know where everyone is tuning in from. I am in the Boston area.
I'm in Jersey, outside of New York City.
Knoxville, Georgia. Great. See some other New Jersey people in here, NYC. Very exciting.
Love it.
Paige and I were just
Awesome.
talking about how cold it is in the Northeast, and we've just been hunkering down. But yeah, great to see all of you, and thanks for sharing some time with us today. So during the registration, many of you submitted very thoughtful questions, and we want you to know that we've reviewed every single one of them. We incorporated as much as we can into today's presentation, and we'll also have a 10-minute Q&A at the end to answer any additional questions. We have a lot of helpful information to share, so we'll hold all of the questions until the end. However, as the questions come up, you can feel free to drop them in the chat or in the Q&A box, and we'll just collect all of them and we'll ask them at the end, and we'll try to make it through as many as we can. You can do it publicly. You can chat just me and Paige, and we'll just pick up all of those questions. So don't worry too much about where or how you're posting them. Just plop them in there and we'll get to them. So at the end of the webinar, we would also greatly appreciate it if you could take a moment to fill out a short survey. Your feedback really helps us create more useful webinars like this one. And also don't worry, we'll share the recording, slides, and contact information with you afterwards so you have everything at your fingertips. So without further ado, I'm going to turn the mic over to Paige. Take it away.
Fantastic. I'm going to share my screen. Can I get a thumbs up, Ewan, that we're rolling? Okay, awesome. So like Ewan mentioned, today we're going to talk about blood sugar and how to manage our blood sugar in the new year. I'm going to give just a quick little background intro to myself. I won't read all this. You can read it as well in the recording and on our website. But like I said, I live outside of New York City in Hoboken, and I've been with Culina for a year, almost a year and a half now. I went to school in Delaware and then Rutgers and have worked in a lot of different places, but really love what I do for Culina and specialize in weight loss, prediabetes and type 2 diabetes, which we're going to talk most about today. I also work with athletes and sports nutrition, heart health, and disordered eating and relationship with food. So just to give a little bit of an outline on what we will be presenting today, I'm going to briefly get into just a little bit of the science behind prediabetes and what's happening in the body that may lead to diabetes, increase your risk for diabetes, and what you want to look out for. And then we'll get into some factors that affect your blood sugar from food to diet to many other things and what that could look like. Simple strategies to balance your blood sugar through meal and snack planning and building, and some sustainable habit building towards the end. We're going to talk about how to set realistic goals, how a dietitian could help you in this process, and some helpful tools in the toolbox, like my favorite brands of snacks and fun breads and crackers and all that good stuff. So that'll be more towards the end, and then we'll open for questions. Before I start throwing the science out, I'm curious if anyone wants to chat any thoughtful responses on what factors you think affect blood sugar. I'm going to give like 30 seconds, and you and I can't see the chat. So if any brave souls
Yep,
chat anything, you can shout it out to me.
I will do that.
And if no one wants to answer, that's okay. We're going to answer it anyways. It's just to get our thoughts rolling.
People are saying sugary foods, diet, family history, carbs. This is some of the
All
responses
true.
we have.
All true.
Stress,
Mm,
hormones,
yep,
insulin resistance.
we're going to touch on them all pretty much. And
Great.
then a lot of you said carbs, sugary foods, so a lot of that was covered. If anyone has any other specific foods or beverages that maybe haven't already been listed that you want to chat in, um, of course, we'll cover a lot of the foods and the beverages today, along with all those other factors that were named.
Yeah.
Anything
Someone else
else in
also
there?
said lack of exercise for the previous question.
Yep.
Um, I think soda really affects, my blood sugar, caffeine, processed meats,
All right.
bread.
Awesome.
Yeah.
We're going to get into a little bit of the science and then circle right back to those factors, but all all pretty much correct. And we'll dive more into it. So, the science behind prediabetes. If you have prediabetes, your body is struggling to keep the right amount of sugar in your blood. So when we eat carbs, they're broken down into glucose, aka sugar, and then they travel into our intestines, into the blood, into our cells. And once they get to the cells use glucose or sugar for energy, or they store it to use later. And glucose is primarily stored in our liver and our muscles. Your body does have like a thermostat effect to keep glucose levels steady throughout the day, similar to an air conditioner. You can make adjustments to control the temperature of the house. A lot of those adjustments are some of those factors we're going to get into together. Everybody's blood sugar, mine, yours, everybody's, no matter if we have prediabetes, diabetes, or not, will rise after you eat. The thermostat, along with insulin, is what helps to manage that blood sugar to keep it at a healthy baseline. So what is insulin? You might hear a lot about insulin. Just to keep it brief for now, but insulin is a hormone made in our pancreas and it's released into the blood when sugar levels rise above their baseline. This happens when you eat or also just due to natural processes. Insulin can help move glucose out of your body and into your cells. And when this happens, that's how our blood glucose or our blood sugar can go down. It's kind of like your gatekeeper. Without it, glucose can't enter. So, what's happening for people with prediabetes or borderline prediabetes, your cells are starting to become a little bit resistant to that insulin. So, insulin is basically knocking at the door but no one's home. So as a result, the sugar has trouble passing into your cells and it just stays in your blood. Your pancreas is likely making enough extra insulin to keep your blood sugar out of the diabetes range, but eventually blood sugar levels may continue to rise, and then this is how diabetes can develop. It's also worth noting if you are diagnosed with prediabetes, it can be reversible. You're at increased risk for that developing into diabetes, but you're also in a nice spot where you can work on some of these modifiable factors we're going to talk about to see reversal of the process. So back to this big question that we asked first, what factors? And a lot of these factors were named in the chat. A lot of food factors were named. People also maybe threw out stress hormones. Those are some great ones. Food and beverages we'll focus mostly on today, but these are some other factors that definitely are worth highlighting when we think about food and its effect on blood sugar. All carbohydrates affect your blood sugar. So maybe some in the chat were focused on more of our concentrated sweets or beverages, like you might think candy or brownies or cookies or donuts. You also might think about more nutrient dense carbohydrates that can affect your blood sugar. All types of fruits, whether fresh or dry or canned or frozen, starches like breads and pastas, and potatoes and rice and quinoa, dairy products like yogurt, cheese, and milk. And then, of course, I named all of those concentrated sweets already, which kind of falls into some of those concentrated sugar sweetened beverages that you may think about. Soda, somebody named, juices, alcohol. With exercise, you may see increases or decreases depending on the workout. And we got a decent amount of questions on exercise. If you're doing like heavy lifting, sprinting, competitive sport, you may see rises due to the stress and inflammation being put on the body. But something like a walk after a meal is one of the best things you can do to actually lower your blood sugar and get a really nice response after, of course, a balanced meal is eaten, which we'll talk more about. So exercise can kind of be different depending on what you're doing, can result in a different response. With stress levels, when you're stressed, your body releases hormones like adrenaline and cortisol. And these hormones make it harder for insulin to do its job properly, which can raise your blood sugar. Over time, this may lead to insulin resistance, increasing your risk for developing diabetes. But if normal, when I say normal stress responses happen from like that inflammatory process of exercise and you see a faster rise in blood sugar, some of that is a normal response when your body is under stress or inflammation. This can even happen when you're sick. Things like dehydration, when you're dehydrated, the concentration of your glucose becomes higher because there's decreased water in your blood, and that can also elevate your blood sugar. Hormonal changes can be fascinating with blood sugar, depending on, menstrual cycle can cause fluctuations in your blood sugar. With menopause, sometimes we see more frequent drops in blood sugar, and often we need to adjust diets to eat more frequent small meals and snacks sometimes because that tends to help with these blood sugar drops that we see. And then medications like beta blockers, corticosteroids, statins, even antibiotics, decongestants, a lot of these medications can raise your blood sugar and are common side effects that you may expect. Steroids, especially if anyone is here who's ever taken a steroid, you might feel really jumpy and you also might see or feel or not feel increases in your blood sugar. So now to get into more of the food related factors, how to balance your blood sugar through meals and snacks. Balanced plate is foundational for what we do at Culina in terms of how to properly build a meal that will help to balance your blood sugar. Snack pairings we're going to get into as well. I think the real take home also here to highlight is that when we see prediabetes or even diabetes, it's not the goal to create a low carb or a no carb diet. It's really a carb controlled diet. And that means controlled portions of carbohydrates with meals, with snacks throughout the day. But that doesn't mean we restrict carbohydrates or we take them all away. We really want to prioritize all this good stuff listed here: fiber, protein. We talked a little bit about the factors elsewhere like hydration, stress, exercise, and sleep. To just briefly discuss each point, with fiber, adult females listening, aim for 25 grams or more per day. And adult males, your goal's a little harder and higher. It's 38. Generally, as a rule of thumb, I like to think about fruits, vegetables, whole grains, beans, legumes, all that good stuff. Those are going to be our highest fiber foods. Protein sources, we really want to try to get protein at every meal, and we're going to share some examples of what that could look like, which can really help with blood sugar stabilization. Hydration, we want to aim for about half of our body weight in ounces per day. So if you're 150 pounds, that's about 75 ounces. It's a little over 2 liters a day. Stress management, really building your what we call emotional toolbox, thinking about the ways that you can best control and manage your stress levels, which is very individualized. Exercise, 150 minutes per week is a very general recommendation, but I'm a big proponent of do what you love and move in ways that you enjoy. Whatever that looks like is the best place to start. And of course, getting adequate sleep. We really do want to limit those sugar sweetened beverages, the soda, the juices, concentrated sweets. I did mention a controlled carbohydrate diet. That is really emphasizing our more nutrient dense carbohydrates, while we do want to really pay attention to limiting and avoiding our less nutrient dense or more concentrated beverages and sweets and alcohol. There are newer guidelines of alcohol that have come out more recently. I still generally utilize the recommendation some of you might have heard of 2 drinks a day for males or less, 1 drink a day for females or less. The new recommendations are saying none at all. So do with that what you will and work with your dietitian to figure out a goal that's best for you and most realistic. But we do know the effects of alcohol on the blood sugar. In terms of how to balance a plate, this is kind of taking that plate and putting a visual to it. So we want to be really prioritizing our non-starchy vegetables with our meals. This is everything from any sort of lettuce to tomatoes, cucumbers, mushrooms, peppers, onions, asparagus, broccoli, cauliflower, Brussels sprouts. Most vegetables you're going to think about are going to fall into that non-starchy group. Quarter plate, we want to think starches, again, those higher fiber starches, which I'll throw to the next slide to show you some examples. And protein, ideally lean proteins, our chicken, our turkey, our fish, our eggs, things like that. And then our water and our fruit are always just our side pieces up here that we always want to incorporate. This is to kind of put words to the visual of what this could look like. I named a ton of vegetables, but there's even more listed here. I omitted seafood, but that is, of course, a protein. And any of these are also, some of these are plant-based proteins. If I have any plant-based eaters, vegans, vegetarians, we're thinking tofu, tempeh, beans, legumes, soy, and then, of course, our high fiber carbs, which this is that group that's going to have likely the biggest impact on the blood sugar. So we really want to focus on a portion controlled option here. And again, with a dietitian, you would have an individual portion recommendation there that is not really so standardized. So with snacking, this is one of my favorite topics to talk about. We really want to build a balanced snack similarly to how do we think about a plate, but a little more realistic. We're probably not going to get tons of vegetables with something like a snack, especially if anyone needs a quick grab or you're on the go or you're at work, you need something easy. But we do really want to pick a carb, which is all on the left here. It's the first piece of these examples. And then on the right, what it's paired with is a protein or a fat. And this is really to maximize fullness and promote steady blood sugar control. So classic example, apple with peanut butter. That is an oldie but a goodie that I still use myself and so many of my patients still come back to and enjoy. There's also combination examples not listed here for those who need ultra convenience and maybe thinking about a high protein drink that you may see in the grocery stores. I have some brand recommendations I'll share, or bars or roasted nuts. A lot of those examples are what I would call combination examples, where you don't really need to pair. They're just built in. They have all the nutrients you need, and the pairing's just in the product. But these are some other examples. I love popcorn and string cheese, banana and a hard-boiled egg. Some of these may sound more natural pairings than others. So go with what your preferences are. And this is just 5 of so many examples that we could come up with. Now with goal setting, this is the good stuff. This is a great slide just featuring a couple of goal examples that I thought were helpful to share to provide what micro goal setting can lead to over time into macro change. So when we think about what we see here, SMART goals stand for specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time bound. This is a strategy dietitians universally use and a lot of other professions to set realistic goals that are designed to really meet you where you are and build on that over time. Some examples, I won't read all of them, but go for a 30-minute walk Mondays and Fridays during your lunch break. So that gets really specific of how long the walk's going to be, the days of the week, when it's going to happen. Maybe this is a patient who goes into the office and is hybrid, but goes in on Mondays and Fridays and likes to step away and go outside. Or if you're in New Jersey, you're not going outside, you're just walking around the lobby or something in the building. But that's a great example, a really nice way to get specific rather than, I'm gonna walk more. I'm gonna start exercising more. Well, what does that really look like? Where can we really start? So some other examples here are listed. Swap soda for seltzer on Friday nights. I like this one. I have a lot of patients who do like Friday night Italian, they order takeout and they're looking to make some sort of a micro change. So if you're always doing soda, that's a great opportunity to reduce that sugar and swap for a seltzer. I love Spindrift, if anyone's interested. How RDs can help. So we can really help to, first of all, just be your cheerleader, your accountability partner, help set these goals with you and guide you together. We can also help personalize your goals. Of course, some of those goals may be totally not relevant to some of you listening or just too big, too small. And that's where we come in to really meet you where you are. Of course, thinking about stress management strategies, sleep strategies, morning routines, evening routines, things that may not seem like they have much to do with what a dietitian does. It's a whole body experience and approach. And we talk about a lot of things other than just food here. So if you're looking to set goals in any of these areas, we can help. We also, for a lot of our patients, look at your food from a visual lens, and we have an app that you can track your photo food journals on, and we look at it together and we tweak and we adjust and we analyze. So that's a really nice feature that a lot of my patients enjoy. But really, we're just here to troubleshoot with you, celebrate with you, and help you reach your goals together. And then lastly, our toolbox. This is where I was talking about some of those brands. I love Chobani Complete protein shakes. That's probably my favorite product ever. I'm not sponsored by them. They're just the best. So if you like a yogurt fruity protein drink, those are amazing. But this is really a toolbox, super simple. This is like a key player's guide, almost if you're like, where do I start? What do I need to get in the grocery store? Those are some big bullet points that you can then think about what your preferences actually are and start there. If you've never incorporated a legume into your routine, that could be a great place to start, a small goal to be thinking about. That tends to be the group that gets the least love in my experience. So these are some brand names of snacks and fun products that I love myself, but also recommend to patients all the time. This is not at all of my tools in my toolbox, but just my favorites that I had to condense for this presentation. And then these are just some additional support options, meal delivery services, if you feel like you need that ultra convenience, supplements, which are designed to supplement a balanced, healthy diet and totally individualized. Do not run from this presentation and order these. Work with your dietitian and your doctor if you're thinking about a supplement. And our app, like I already talked about, and then some stress management apps that I really love. Um, that's all.
Perfect.
Questions? I think I'm on time.
Yeah, thanks so much, Paige. That was really awesome.
Okay.
We did get some questions that were just like coming in throughout
As that.
the presentation, so I'm just gonna read them out in order, and then let's see how many we
Okay.
can get through. We're just gonna do lightning round questions.
Okay.
Okay. What does it feel like when your blood sugar is too high or too low?
Good question. You might not always feel it. That's what I would say first. So making sure you're staying on top of those annual physicals and getting your blood sugar checked at minimum on an annual basis. Making sure you have also check for insurance coverage on if you can get your labs checked even more frequently, like blood sugar and hemoglobin A1C, which would be diagnosing diabetes. But if you are suspecting, I have some symptoms, does this sound like high or low blood sugar? A big one would be like the crashing that you might have heard before. If you find throughout the day you're just like constantly getting fatigued and tired, you're really like all of a sudden super hungry and need a snack immediately, that's a big sign of low blood sugar. Like go get a snack, make sure it's balanced. But fatigue, frequent feelings of crashing, fatigue, exhaustion, and a big one for more of a like dramatic side effect that you might feel is frequent urination and frequent thirst. Tends to be more seen with type 1 diabetes, which is not what we covered at all. That is completely different, but it is an overall side effect that you might feel type 1, type 2.
Great. Any guidance on yogurt, non-fat versus low versus full fat?
Good question. So with yogurt, the biggest thing for blood sugar is not necessarily going to be if it's 0%, 2%, or 4%. It's actually going to be how much added sugar is in the yogurt. That's the more important angle I would be thinking about in regards to this presentation. If this was a heart healthy cholesterol presentation, it would be different. So I'll try to address both because a lot of people have both goals. Um, Looking for a yogurt that's the lowest in added sugar. I love Chobani that has a less sugar line, Chobani Greek, less sugar, Too Good, Oikos Triple Zero. Those are probably my top three for low to no added sugar. Every yogurt's going to have natural sugar. Same with fruit. Those are just coming from the natural sugar contained in a dairy product. As far as fat content goes, I prefer to add fat. I prefer to go 0% and add some nut butter, some chia seeds to create fat as an add. But if you love a creamy, thick yogurt, the higher fat content you go, the higher calories the product will have. And I would just be conscious of that depending on your preference and what your goals are. If there's a heart healthy goal in there, I would go lower fat.
Great. And we have a few questions about yogurt and balancing sugar and fat. I'll come back to those if we have time, but I just want to make sure we get to as much of a variety as possible. So is intermittent fasting good for someone with insulin resistance, or is skipping breakfast as part of intermittent fasting bad for blood sugar regulation? And then if you have any comments on like the keto diet.
Great hot questions. So, with intermittent fasting, generally, it can be problematic with blood sugar because we don't like our blood sugar doesn't like to go long periods of time without eating. So, general rule of thumb, I recommend to have a balanced breakfast within 60 to 90 minutes of waking up, and then to try to be eating every 3 to 4 hours if you are concerned about blood sugar or really looking to optimize your blood sugar. I would say the longer you go without starting the eating process, the more at risk you may be for dysregulated blood sugar. And also then your hunger may build up. It may be harder to control portions once you do break that fast. And it may lead to other problems like over consuming too much carbohydrate at one time. With the keto diet, it's back to what I really tried to write home in the presentation about controlled carb versus no carb. It can be really dangerous to go on a really, really low carbohydrate diet, especially if you have prediabetes or diabetes, because it can dysregulate your body's natural process and desire to really manage your blood sugar and digest and absorb carbohydrates for energy. Like we talked about, they're our body's main source of fuel and energy and for storage in those in the liver and muscles. So keto diets tend to be very low to no carbohydrate and then really high in fat, which can maybe help solve one problem temporarily, but then might cause another, like high cholesterol, for example. So it's typically not something that I recommend generally, especially for anyone with prediabetes or diabetes.
Yeah, that makes sense. Um, Diet sodas, do they spike your blood sugar? What are our thoughts on them?
Diet sodas will not spike your blood sugar, but that depends like when's the last time you ate? Are you eating anything with the diet soda? If you've like eaten a balanced meal and you have a diet soda with it, it shouldn't cause any further effect. Like there's no calories in diet soda, there's no added sugar in diet soda. Um, Individual patient to patient recommendations generally for diet soda. I am not totally anti against diet soda at all. I want you to enjoy a diet soda in moderation. The research is just not strong enough in my professional opinion that we need to be totally avoiding it and restricting it, but we want to be turning to water first and foremost, meeting your fluid needs primarily through water or other beverages that are not artificially sweetened. But if you love a diet soda and you want to have a diet soda a couple times a week, every day with lunch, if that's like your favorite thing ever, I'm not going to take it away from you. And don't
Great.
take it away from me either, because I love Diet Coke.
All right, well, let's see if we can get two more in here. Do you think things like the Stello are worthwhile, just in general commentary about, CGMs and wearables?
Mm, good question. I do think that CGMs are overall worthwhile to answer it like yes or no. I think they are helpful and beneficial if you are an appropriate candidate, both blood sugar wise and also your relationship with food. And what I mean by blood sugar, if you do not have prediabetes or diabetes, a CGM is going to be interesting, I suppose, to show you that certain foods and beverages will raise your blood sugar more than other certain foods and beverages. But like I explained too, your blood sugar is going to go up when you eat no matter what. And if your blood sugar is controlled, it's going to come down fine. If you're eating balanced meals, if you're prioritizing all the things, exercise, stress management, it's a lot to prioritize. But if you feel like you're generally in a good place, a CGM is an interesting tool. They're over the counter now. They're not so cheap. So factor that in if it's worth it from a financial perspective. And what are you really looking to do with the data, I would say if you have prediabetes or diabetes, you can a lot of times see insurance coverage for these. I help my patients navigate CGMs. We look at data together. It can be really, really helpful if you have no idea what affects your sugar in terms of food and beverage, of course. But we have to make sure your relationship with food is in a fairly neutral, strong place because it can be really easy to obsess and nitpick this data and create more fear than we need around certain foods like fruits that can be a really popular one. Your sugar will go up when you eat fruit no matter what, but really just depends on the patient if it's going to be a helpful tool.
Yeah. Maybe we have time for one more question, and then I think
Yeah.
we will be out. Um, uh, I'm super healthy with eating and exercise, but diabetes runs in my family. Currently pre-diabetes, even as I work hard to reduce my risk. Am I fighting an uphill battle? What are your comments on, yeah, family genes versus lifestyle and exercise and diet?
Yeah, I'm glad we're addressing this because it was something someone commented and it really wasn't addressed in our presentation, like hereditary genetic risk factors. Of course, those are factors. We like to focus on the modifiable risk factors. So we can't change your genetic makeup and your hereditary makeup and your family history, right? But um, I would say, thinking about this presentation, do you feel like you have done all your due diligence and modified all the things to the best of your ability at this time? And also, how's your sugar trending? Are you working with your doctor to monitor your sugar? Would a CGM be interesting to kind of level up what data you're looking at? It's hard to say right now, of course, for this person who asked this question, what the future holds. But if we can focus on modifiable risk factors, and if the goal is just let's keep your blood sugar stable, you may sit at prediabetes with your A1C for years and years and years, and your doctor may continue to not be super concerned as long as it's stable. You're just sitting higher, likely due to genetics. But if you continue to just trend higher and higher and higher, and you're doing all the modifiable risk factor work, a further intervention may be needed down the line, is what I would say.
Unfortunately, we are out of time. There were so many questions that we didn't get to. We'll find a way to continue this conversation with you all. Thank you so much for spending time with us today. Please fill out our feedback survey if you have a moment. And we look forward to sharing the recording and slides with you and continuing the conversation with you on your health journey. Thank you so much.
Thanks, everyone.
Have a great day, everybody.